Thank you everyone for joining us for today's summer session. We have Nicola Lutz joining us to talk to us about how to set up a sales process for simple non-sleazy selling. Thank you, Nicola, so much for joining us.
You are very welcome. I think we're all into the non-sleazy sales part. I'm having to kind of watch my phone to look at the chat. I might not be able to do it very well, so I'm sure you'll help me out if I can't see the questions, but do yell out with any questions that you have as we go through. But first of all, thank you very much for having me. I've been looking at the sessions going on throughout the summer, and it's just a brilliant thing to watch, and the engagement from everyone. It's just been lovely. So I'm hoping I can give you a bit of help today. And so first of all, let's tell you who I am if you're not familiar with me. So my name is Nicola Lutz. I own a company called No Fluff that's been going for about 7 or 8 years. I recently wrote a book called Spend Less, Sell More, which is all about squeezing leads for more sales, not letting anyone kind of leave your pipeline without you having serviced them properly and given them what they need. I'm a director of a company called Study Travel, which works between educators and international agents, and we run 15 conferences around the world, a magazine and a network. And I'm known for being the education sales coach, and I'm very specifically on sales, not necessarily marketing, though there is an overlap. I'm a founding fellow of the Institute of Sales Professionals and a holder of the Fair Ethical Selling diploma as well. And I organise an event called No Fluff Fest. So that's who I am. Hopefully that shows you I know what I'm talking about. So before we start, I have to convince you that selling is a good thing. So it's not usually why we go into business. Usually we want to tutor or do whatever it is our business does. So selling just enables you to do more of that. Sales is just enabling you to get more of your good stuff out there, and enable more students and families to achieve their dreams. That's all that sales does. It's just a method of getting to where you want to be. So it's always a good idea when I'm going to ask you to do anything, like working with my own children. If I want you to do anything or suggesting you do something, let's just remind ourselves why we do what we do. So remind yourself why you tutor, whether you're an individual tutor or you run a tutoring business. Why do you do that? So remember the passion and the vocation you have behind that, and then we're going to work out what your business goals are around that. So you might want to grow, you might want to stay at the level that you're already at and just prevent a bit of kind of churn and just renewing students each year and adding a few more. But let's have a think about what your goals are, and we're going to be helping you get towards that. Okay, so first caveat actually is knowing your audience. And I know there have been some sessions around this as well. Knowing your audience, you know your audience better than I do, and it always comes from a place of serving the audience. When we're selling, we have this image of us pushing something on somebody else. That's generally the image of salespeople, that they've got a thing and they're going to try and convince you to buy it, whether you want it or not. Kind of got this bad reputation. That's not what we're about in education. Sales, it's all about pupil-led, benefit-led service, really. So it's not as reactive as customer service. So if someone says sales is customer service, I would disagree with that. It's a little bit more proactive than that. But it all starts with your audience and what they need. And you may have several audiences. So for those of you that have done it before, ideal client avatar work or buyer persona work is really, really important. If you haven't done it before, let me know. Actually, I've got some free templates you can use. Just send me a message. My details will be at the end. But starting with your audience in mind and how we can best work alongside them to their benefit and our benefit is where everything starts. So that's my first caveat. So we're going to go right back to basics, and some of you will just know this back to front, but I think it's always worth reiterating that we have a sales funnel and we have a sales pipeline, quite often mixed up. A sales funnel is this one on the left here, obviously funnel shape. So the sales funnel is more about a visual representation of the bulk of people that you are selling to. So these will be inbound leads that you haven't sold to yet, all the way through to current clients and potentially families that are booking with you again. So all the way through those different stages, as you can see here. So that's a funnel. It's more of a visual representation of the different stages. A pipeline is usually how you are managing to move people from one stage to the next. It's more of a map than pipeline. And we're going to talk about both of those today. So again, the funnel, you're going to be putting people in the funnel. This isn't rocket science, we're okay. We're going to be putting people in the funnel. This is your lead generation work. So going to events, using your network, possibly doing advertising or marketing. All your marketing activity is generating leads, hopefully. They're going into your funnel at the top, usually. If they're a referral from a friend or a family, word of mouth, they kind of come in the middle of the funnel, which is great because we've saved a bit of money. But generally, if it's a colder audience, they'll come in at the top of that funnel and they become aware of what you offer and what you do and your prices and all that kind of thing. And those are your leads or inquiries. And then they will be shopping around probably. So they'll look at several tutors or several tutoring businesses and they'll consider their options. And not all of this is done on price. As you know, a lot of it's down to personality or specialism. There'll be lots of different things that they're considering in that section. And then it goes down to making the decisions, so negotiating or finding out about timings or packages that you might offer. And these are your hotties, these are your hot prospects, which is great because they've nearly bought with you. You can nearly work with them and just get the nice job done. And then they take an action, which is usually buying in whatever way that looks like to you. And some of yours will then go through to buying again, and that's great. And they just spend their time going in and out of that bottom part of the funnel. Not tricky, right? Sounds really easy. Sales, dead easy. This is your sales funnel. Okay, and we're going to call them cold, warm, pretty warm, and hot. Call them whatever you like. When you have a sales funnel, it's just going to be called whatever you want, but those are the usual stages. And the pipeline is the funnel inverted. That's all it is. Okay, so a pipeline example, this is the boring bit, it gets more interesting, I promise, is this. So they go from cold, which is the top of your funnel, and then we warm them up until they become a hot lead, if you like, and then you've closed the sale and they've bought from you, or you've closed the sale because they haven't bought from you and either they cannot buy from you or they've bought somewhere else. Quite often they can stay in that pipeline several months, if not years. So someone that bought from you, from your competitor last year, may buy from you this year. They've not gone completely back to cold. Okay, so they can stay in your pipeline for quite a while. And what we would do in a sales context is manage your pipeline, but it's all about the humans moving through it. That's why I'm saying that we need to know your audience. Okay, so all that we need to do for a sales process is work out how to move them from one stage to another in this process. That's all we need to do. How do we go from a cold lead, they don't know who we are, don't know us from Adam, how do we get them into our funnel? Well, that would be through your social media and your marketing efforts. That's how you're going to generate your leads. So we're going to get them from a cold audience to a warm audience, those that have already heard about us. And again, you could call these anything you like. I'm just using these as examples here. Okay. What I would suggest you do, though, if you've got pen and paper ready or whatever it is you like to make your notes on, is decide what constitutes a warm lead and what makes it different from a very warm lead and what makes that different from a hot lead. So, for example, it might be that a warm lead is someone that has sent you an inquiry, an email, maybe filled in your form. That could be a warm lead. It might be that then you've asked them a few more questions and they've answered correctly. There's such a word. They've given you the right signals and they become a very warm lead. And it might be that then they're talking to you about when they can start and costs and packages and that kind of thing. And then they become a hot lead because they're that bit closer to purchasing. And then when they're closed won, what is that? And this can change actually. So this is quite often payment is received. Some people will invoice as they go. Some people will invoice in bulk. Some people will invoice after the sessions have been had. So what does closed won look like for you? What does a hot lead look like for you? And I would recommend, because we're going to come at this with a process-driven mindset, what is the checklist at each of these stages? So a warm lead is, it could be as simple as they have inquired. It could be on your inquiry form, there are several questions. It could be that they fill in a certain number of those fields on your form. And if they're very warm, what does that mean? Does that mean you've had a meeting and a chat? Does it mean you've tested their level of whatever it is you're tutoring in? What exactly is that? What makes them a very warm lead rather than a warm lead, but not quite a hot lead? So start making a checklist of what that means, because we're going to need that later on. And if they're hot, what does that mean? What does a hot lead mean to you? Does it that they know the prices? You've spoken to whoever the decision makers are, the parents usually, or the child itself, themselves. It could be that the timings will work. You might need to tick a few of those things off. It might be that you've sent the invoice and you're at that stage and it's all good to go. And then close one might be they've paid the invoice, for example. And when do you move them from hot to closed lost is always quite contentious. We like to leave them around because we're very optimistic that they might come in. So how are we going to manage these stages of this pipeline? And once we've done that, once we've defined the pipeline stages, we then need to start working on our process of moving them through the pipeline. And a sales process is really just the steps, like a little roadmap of how we're going to get them from one stage to the next, what exactly we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, even why we're going to do it sometimes. But at the same time, our buyers have a journey. So our families and our pupils have a journey. So what do they need at each of these stages? What do they need from us to move from warm, from sending an inquiry, to get to very warm and hot? What do they need? And I've seen some great sessions. There was one by a lady called Samantha that was very good on how to approach your clients or potential clients with offers and all sorts of things. And it was lovely to hear that. So what does your ideal client need information-wise to book? This sounds really obvious, doesn't it? So they're going to need prices and timings and various things like that. There might be some terms and conditions, but also what do they need emotionally? What place do they need to be in emotionally to move from a warm inquiry to a hot inquiry or even closed one? They're going to probably need some feelings, such as feeling reassured and confident and empowered. They need to feel these things. And that's all very well me just saying that. What we need to work out is how we help them to feel that. Okay, so this is a pipeline. I hope we've set the stage. So this is generally what happens. This is a process, usually when I start working with all of the schools and the agencies and the people that I work with. This is generally what happens, that we have the first point of contact in over here. So it's usually an email inquiry or a web form being filled in, sometimes a phone call, not very often anymore, as I was just talking about. So first point of contact happens, no problem at all. You send the information because you're very polite and you were raised well. You send them the information back, and then ideally they go, brilliant, they've got a few questions, and it goes backwards and forwards, and then they book and it's all fine. If only everything followed the green arrows, we would be more than happy, right? Until we got to capacity, that would be lovely. Doesn't always happen. So quite often what happens is the contact comes in, we send our information, and then if they don't reply Sometimes we will send a little follow-up email, usually not a phone call, usually nothing else, to say, oh, you know, did you still want this? It's kind of tentative. It might come after you've gone backwards and forwards a bit and they've ghosted you, which is very frustrating because you've then spent time and energy on them. And then if they don't reply, usually then we give up. So I don't know if that's ringing true for anybody. I'm just trying to see if I can see. I can't see any of the questions, but do put in the comments if this looks like you. So information comes in, you reply, you might reply another time if they don't get back to you, but generally that's the end of the line. That's usually what I see. So there's no problem with that, but you are losing out on potential students there. Okay. And the reason why is there are lots of stats. I've literally written the book about this. 50% of the people that are inquiring are not yet ready to buy. They're shopping around. Now, if they're shopping around and it's a bit of a panic near the start of term or something, then that's a different matter. But generally, 50% are not yet ready to buy. I was just saying, I'm going on holiday to New Zealand next year, and I'm looking around at camper van prices and Airbnb prices. I'm just shopping around. I'm not actually going to book anything yet. So I'm part of the 50% that sent an inquiry to the camper van people, not yet ready to buy. I'm just gathering information. So don't forget, 50% aren't going to buy anyway. So it's up to us to start nurturing them through a sales process, okay? Because they're not ready yet and we don't want to lose them. Nurtured leads make 40% larger purchases as well. So they're going to stay with you for longer. They might buy a higher price package. So if we learn how to nurture them better, more effectively, sales nurturing, they're going to be longer term clients and spend more usually. They're also very, very good at the word of mouth recommendations. So that's worth bearing in mind. So this is a little chart that I bring out. It's in my book as well, but this is usually what happens. I've just described. So 2% of you will make that first contact, so the reply to their inquiry, and 48% will give up there. Okay, so you're not alone. 3% of actual sales are made at the second contact. So that's 5% of potential sales are made in that graph that I just showed you here. 5%. So you're missing out on the rest of those leads. So as you can see, 80% of potential sales are made between the 5th to 12th follow-up. So I'd be really interested, not that I can get into the chat at the moment, but I'd be really interested to know how many of you do actually follow up 5 to 12 times, and how many of you are now rolling your eyes at me going, I don't know how to do that. It seems pushy. It seems sleazy. I was promised this was a non-sleazy sales session. I promise you it's not going to be sleazy at all. And you probably are doing a little bit more than you think. But 5 to 12 times we need to follow up in order to secure that booking. So if you're doing that already, brilliant. Then we're just looking at tweaking perhaps what you already have. If you're not, then the good news is there are more sales to be made, which is really exciting. The harder news is that we need to learn how to do it in a process so that we don't miss it, because it's going to be the last thing you probably want to do, because actually what you want to be doing is delivering a great education. So how can we follow up 5 to 12 times without losing our minds? So how can we do that when we're already busy? How can we do it effectively? Okay, well, I'm going to show you. This is the most simple way of doing it. It is the most basic of charts. I do have a one that you can download if you would like that. Again, you can just get in touch with me. So what we're going to do is look at a follow-up process. And this is a sales process, and this can come really at any stage. So it could come after you've sent a quote, for example, or it could come at the first point of contact. What I would say is when you get an inquiry in, what we want to do, the sales term is qualifying that person. We need to make sure that they fit our criteria, and that will change for each of you, but generally it means they're of the right age, they're looking for what you offer, so we're helping them with their need, they have the money to pay us for our services, and the time should fit. So there'll be various criteria, and once they've ticked those boxes, they're qualified and we can progress. So the earlier we can qualify a lead, the better, and the more time it will save you. So if you have spent hours chatting to a family about tutoring their child or their children, and then later on they say, well, we don't have any budget actually to do this, or it's half of your usual rate, then you've used all that time up. We need to address those actually quite awkward questions earlier to qualify. So take a moment and just write down what qualifies them as a great potential client for you. So it's usually going to be money. Do they have the money? It's usually going to be, do they make the decision? Or are they one of the decision makers? Or are they an influencer? So quite often the children could be an influencer around that decision, but doesn't hold the purse strings. So you need to have the parents on board as well. So who are the decision makers here? Do we have something that they offer that they would like? Sorry, can we actually help them? So if you're an English tutor and they're looking for maths tuition, then you might want to refer them on. They don't qualify. And then are we looking around the same timelines? Do the timings work? Or are they looking for next year and you're going to be in the Bahamas somewhere with a Mai Tai? So you need to look at what qualifying criteria you have for them. The earlier you can do that, the better. Can be awkward though, right? If you're got to ask about money. There are some questions. I believe I have a cheat sheet on this as well, so do ask me. But things along the line of how much are you looking to invest in this tuition? Have you seen our prices yet, or would you like me to talk you through those? So getting over those quite awkward money questions, I would suggest you just practice those and find some ways that you'll be comfortable bringing that up. Okay, so let's assume that they are qualified, or we're still trying to qualify them. This is your follow-up map. Very, very simply, first point of contact, we're going to reply. Nothing difficult here. I'm hoping that you're all okay with that so far. So we're going to reply to them. And I don't know if any of you have read my book, but if you have, you will know that shocking statistic that if you can reply within 5 minutes, which seems really fast, if you can reply within 5 minutes, it increases your chance of converting them by over 300%. I mean, it's big, big, big numbers here. So if you can convert them, if you can reply to them within 5 minutes, you increase your chances of conversion. Now, you don't have to reply with all the bells and whistles and all the details, but showing them that you value their business and that you've got their inquiry and that you're on it will really help. And this is really why auto replies were made, so that they could get that out straight away. We know that everything should be personalised these days. Depends on the volume of inquiries and leads that you have in. I think automation has a place in this, but if you can respond personally within 5 minutes, again, you're more likely to convert. We're just going to work with what we have, right? So fastest finger wins there. It's like a competition. So within 5 minutes, it's perfect. And then how, it's usually going to be in the same method that they use. So if they sent a web form in or they emailed, you're usually going to use the same method. And fair enough, we were talking earlier about using the phone. It has been proven that using the phone, not necessarily just for a phone call, but also SMS or WhatsApp, is a really, really good way of getting that first point in and making sure that you get that client rather than one of your competitors. So if they're shopping around, what touch point can we use there to increase your chances? Because we're just looking for extra ways to increase your chances of onboarding that student, that family. Depending on where I am, so in some of the boarding schools that I work with, we have a phone first policy. So the inquiry comes in and they phone and they say something along the lines of, very excited that you're looking at attending our school. We're going to reply within a couple of hours with all the information that you need. And then I'm going to give you a call back tomorrow after you've had a chance to read it, and we're going to talk about it again, or you can ask me any questions. So by that phone first, they've increased, actually within a couple of weeks, they increased, the last school has increased their conversion rate by over 17% within a couple of weeks of doing that. It's highly effective. If you think that won't work, you can SMS, potentially WhatsApp, depending on where you are in the world as well. Could be WeChat or whatever that format is. So different cultures have different ways of dealing with messaging along those lines. But either way, reply fast. And email does work really well if you've got to give them facts and figures and timings and things, because it's better to have it written down. But in terms of creating a rapport and best practice, if you can call, I would say call, because there's nothing like a personal bit of attention to show that you care and that you really want to help that family with their tuition. I've got two other columns here. One's called value add and one is called call to action, and we're going to come to those in a moment. So we're just going to go down and build this process out really quickly. So reply is as soon as possible, when and how, in the same method or with a call if you can. Follow-up number one, I've only got 5 here because this is probably a new concept for you. Usually I would say an average of about 8. If I was working with a well set up business with a CRM and all sorts of things, it would definitely be more than that. And we can automate reminders of these things. So the idea is, though, that anyone can use this, because it's just a piece of paper, really, at the end of the day. And we can just use a calendar and some notes, and we're away. So anyone can use it. Follow-up number 1, know your client. Depends who you're dealing with, and might depend somewhat on the timings of when they would like to start, of course. But I would say usually within 2 to 3 days, then you would have follow-up number 1. Most people would say follow up within a week. I would say 2 to 3 days. Show them that you value their business. We're not pushing them into a decision. That's not what the follow-up is for. The follow-up is there to nurture them. So think of this more as a nurture sequence rather than hard sell, pushing, badgering them. It's much more helping them along that journey. They've reached out to you for help, and we're going to help them. Okay, and that's where the value add piece comes along. But just in terms of timing, we've got straight away, we've got 2 to 3 days later, another 3-ish days later, another 3-ish days later, and then a week later and a week later. We're going down that column. Keep it very simple, and the idea is that you reply and then you diarize that next follow-up so that we don't miss it. Okay, because most of you, don't forget, will give up here, if not here. Okay, and then how? Mix up your methods. Let's make it interesting. We've already talked about the phone call. We have SMS, we have WhatsApp and WeChat and various other messaging platforms. We have potentially social media. If you're, I don't know if any of you work with overseas agents, they might be obviously on WhatsApp and on SMS and email, but also on LinkedIn, for example, or Study Travel Network. They could be up there too. So mix up your methods. You can use the phone, you can use video. I know that's a bit scary, isn't it? You can use video messaging, you can use the DMs, you can even use post potentially if you have the details. So, but just mix them up, because what I also tend to find is we rely on email so much. And email is a noisy place. I have loads of emails, I don't know about you, but also if they have sent this request to 2 or 3 tutoring businesses, everyone's going to email. So if you want to stand out, you need to do something a bit different. And it might be in your copy, there is that, but sometimes you just need a bit more of an edge. So mix up those methods. Voicemails are also a good idea, but leave a voicemail and then send an email as well, I would recommend. Some cultures don't use voicemail at all. They just won't listen to them. I'd much rather have a chat with your lovely self, I'm sure. Okay, so we've done when and we've done how. And then this is our process we're building out. And then the value add part is my favorite part actually of this process, because this is where we're not selling. We are adding value. That's what it says on the tin. We are adding value to our inquirers. And you probably already have so much that you can put in here. Value add is anything that your ideal client avatar or your buyer persona or your favorite audience would value. And it doesn't have to be about education or learning. It doesn't have to be about price lists. It doesn't have to be about any of that. It can be something funny. It can be a useful guide to something. It can be some tips and tricks or hacks, they like to call them. Whatever they would like is useful here. And so find some and plop them in. These could be anything from, it could be a case study, for example. It could be some testimonials, or some testimonial videos are really good, actually. It could be some of your YouTube videos. It could be a handy guide, so 5 tips to blah, blah, blah. It could be 10 funny customs about whatever it might be, or the 5 best movies about maths. Just something to make you stand out and be a bit different and look like you are helping them. In fact, you are helping them along that journey that they're going to. We're only such a small part of their life journey. So let's be useful in it. And we don't want to follow up 5 times and just say, any questions 5 times, do we? So we've got to do something different. So adding value here is really, really important. And then the next one is the call to action. And you will have different ways that you want them to do this. You might want them to go onto a portal to book and pay, for example. You might want them to schedule a meeting with you so you can have a chat. You might want them to download a guide, or you might want them to answer, put some more answers on a form. Whatever that call to action is, you put them down here. Only give them one call to action. We tend to drown people in information. Save a bit. You know you've got to follow up 5 times. Save a little bit back. Change up your calls to action. So the first one might be, you know what, let's just have a chat. Here's my diary link. Let's have a chat about it. Or it could be, the next one could be, oh, here's a case study from a similar student that I helped. Have a watch of that and then let me know if you have any questions. Could be as simple as that. Could be, we're having a webinar to talk about this next Tuesday. Would you like to register for that? Here's the link. So whatever those calls to action are, mix them up a little bit, but only ever give them one at a time. Don't say, download our guide, book a call, have a look at our website for our prices, go and see what this student did with us last year. It's just too overwhelming. They'll go off down a rabbit hole, just like you or I would. You'd be off down a rabbit hole and that would be that. They won't go back and do the actual thing that you want them to do. If you only really want them to do one thing, then ask them to do that one thing. So if you won't accept a student without having a call with them first, then all roads really lead to that call to action. So you can just be consistent in that. Okay, so that is the most simple follow-up map that you could ever imagine. Fill it in for what feels comfortable to you, and then you can make templates around it. So you can add in your calls to action, and that could be what goes out. If you're using the phone, then brilliant. I'm your biggest fan. You can have prompts for that as well. If they're templates, you can use those. And then do it for about a month and see how you go. The most important thing is that you don't just stop here. If you can follow up just one more time, so you'll have those clients, and I bet you can think of them now, you'll have those inquiries that kind of just went cold on you. Go and follow them up. I quite often work with my clients and we'll say, okay, let's look at the leads that you got last November. Let's give them a call, see where they are, what they've done, if they still need help. And you pretty much always make sales out of that. Go back past your old inquiries and go and pick them up again and get in touch. Keep following up. If they're still of the right age, obviously, and you can still help them. Obviously, if they're now, don't need any tutoring at all, then probably not going to want to follow them up. I'm going to come to some questions in a moment, but just to reiterate, this is your sales process. So all you're going to do is move them between one stage or another. So moving them from asking for prices and being a very warm lead to being a hot lead. They might go quiet on you. So you use this follow-up map to check that they are still interested, to help them along that journey and continue to nurture them. Because it would be very annoying if you did all of that work and gave them the quotes and had the calls and added the value, and then you stopped and then they went to whoever they contacted next or whoever got in touch with them next. Okay. And don't forget, it's not about you and how uncomfortable you are with doing this again. If you aim to serve them and help them along that journey and think of it as nurturing rather than sales follow-up or sales process, it will help you. It's not about you, it's about them. How can we help them feel comfortable with taking that leap? How can we help them feel confident that we are the right tutors for them? How can we help them feel all of those things? What do they need? So one of your follow-ups, for example, could be about social proof, as it were. So it could be, I'm a member of this association, I have been doing this for many years, I have a 99% happiness score. Start reassuring them. What do they need at each stage of this process in order to just make the step to the next part of that pipeline? It's not about you, it's always about them. So I'm going to stop sharing in a minute if I can work out how. But there's my email. It's my direct email. Happy to answer any questions. Free chats available as well. And this is my books. It's like £5 or something on Amazon. You are very welcome to ask me any questions that you have about a sales process. I hope I've kept that simple for you, but I'm going to come to the questions now if I can work out how to get out of this. How am I doing? Stop presenting. How are we all doing? I couldn't see any faces while I was presenting. Yay, lovely. Do we have any questions, Sam?
So there is one in the chat from Eleni, which is a bit of a long one. So Eleni, I don't know if you would be able to, if you wanted to ask out loud, please.
Sure.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Sorry to have my camera off.
No problem.
I was just wondering, thank you so much for all that. I was just wondering, in my personal case, and I don't know if that is relevant for others. In my case, I kind of tend to rely on clients approaching me through the agency, and so I've tried to add as much information, obviously, on that as possible about how it works, what service I offer, obviously what my rate is, so that if they contact me, they're obviously happy with my rate. Some may bargain a little bit, but and how the process works, what I do for each student. So I've put like a lot on my profile. And so how would that kind of pertain in that case? Is it more about kind of reassuring them that first of all I do what I say on the tin, that and because also the agencies have client testimonials there, so a lot of that process is kind of like already there for them. So when they're contacting you, they're kind of already a pretty warm lead, because they usually contact you and probably like a couple of other tutors. So you're one thing is that your product, because you'll have a trial lesson and that's good enough and great. But how do you kind of adjust what you said about the subsequent contacts when someone already has the information kind of there?
Well, most people don't just want the information, because usually the information is available widely, or they've already, you've already sent the price list and all that kind of thing. So usually what they want is something else, and we don't buy from information, we buy off of emotion and then back it up with the data. So usually what they need then, if they're not buying based on what you've already given them, they need to feel reassured and confident that you are going to get them to the outcome that they want. So you're never selling your tutoring packages like that. You're never selling what you think you're selling. What you're actually selling is the outcome that they will get later on, maybe 10 years from now, after having been tutored and reached their educational goals. So reassurance, stories work really well, but reassurance and social proof are probably missing if you're just sending them your rates and your hours and that kind of thing. So case studies work really, really well there. If it's through an agency, are you still free to contact them directly, or is it the agency that follows up?
Yeah, no, I'm free. I'm free to contact them. It's all between us, yeah.
Yeah, so I would still do it. It's just you're going to have to find different things. So usually what I find, if it's parents that you're working with, they want to feel confident that they're making the right decision for their child. So you need to tell them a story around that or show them why. You might be overwhelming them at the beginning with all of your information. Usually in any sales process, you would ask questions first. It's not about just pushing what you have. You might want to ask a few questions first, if at all possible. So you can send them some basic information, but to say, actually, I'd love to know more about you or your child. What do they want to do once they have reached the level that they want to reach in whatever subject it is? And what interests them about this? Have they tried this before? Have you had tutors before? What worked with that and what didn't work with that? So you need to try and build a relationship. It's not like a market stall where everything's just on sale. It's much more interactive because it's quite a personal thing, tutoring, isn't it? So that rapport building is really important.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Let's have a look. Paul, I would love some slides. Yeah. Bless him. I'll have to copy that down. Okay, so that's all the sales process is. I don't know if that's new to everybody. Does anyone follow up more than twice already? No. Okay. So, oh, well done, Serena. I love that. Oh, we've got some thumbs up. That's excellent. I love that because that is the best way to convert higher. And I think having a process around it, so following that really simple map and just saying, okay, so I replied to that inquiry and then 2 days later, I'm going to follow up. So put it in your diary with the name and off you go. Does anyone have a CRM or anything here, like Salesforce or HubSpot or anything like that? Do you all have them organized? Getting one, fantastic. Okay. Okay, lots of no's. So there are, a CRM is a client relationship management tool. Sounds very fancy. It's like a fancy electronic filing cabinet where all of your inquiries would be. And there is a visible pipeline like that one that I showed you. And it has a diary in it and an appointment link in it and all sorts of things. There's a really good free one is HubSpot Sales CRM, which is free for, I think, up to 1,000 contacts. Can't remember offhand, but about 1,000 contacts. It just keeps everybody in one place. Usually I find people have them in spreadsheets, if at all, or email inboxes is the worst case scenario. But Excel sheets can work. I'm not a big fan of Excel, but it can work. HubSpot, shall I write it in the thing? It's called HubSpot Sales CRM. And it's free. There are different levels, like all of these things, but HubSpot is a great company anyway to work with, but they have, you visualize all your leads in there. So that pipeline stage of cold, warm, very warm and hot, for example, you just click and drag them in there. So you might have, Davy Jones inquiring about a package, then they might go in warm, and then you've had a chat with them and they're asking all the right questions and they know the prices. You might move them on to hot, and then you can visualize it. So you think, well, okay, now if I can get Davy to close and the other ones to close, then I know I've got this many students, and it can give you an idea of how you're converting at each stage. So we're getting a bit more into the data side of it there, but HubSpot will show you your conversion rates between them. Claire, I'm having to go through WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger and emails. Yeah, that's a nightmare. Although most of the big CRMs don't coordinate very well or aren't very friendly with WhatsApp, which is ridiculous. So you would have to do it manually, but I do it manually. It's not a problem, but you can have all of your Facebook leads, Instagram leads, and everything feeding into a CRM like HubSpot. It's just you set up the forms and codey things. I mean, they've got so many tutorials, it's pretty easy. Newsletters can fit into the follow-up table. I would have separate newsletters actually for current inquirers, alumni, and then totally cold inquirers as well. So I would tweak the newsletters a little bit. But yes, that can count as one of your touch points. But what I want to steer clear of, if you can, is the inquiry comes in and you respond, and then you just put them into your newsletter sequence. That's not follow-up, that's very passive. And I think moving to a slightly more active follow-up, just for that first couple of weeks after the inquiry drops, I think you'll increase your conversions. Claire, you have to do it manually. No, you don't have to do it all manually. HubSpot have a little app as well, so it's actually really easy to use. And it's a really good way of tracking and putting in forecasts and all sorts of things. Mainly, I would like you to use it, if you can, to track your leads so that you're not just leaving money on the table. Those students need you, and as long as they fit all those criteria that we talked about to qualify, you can help them. And actually getting a no is just as good as getting a yes. Not quite as good, with less cash, but at least then we move them out of the pipeline and we know that we're not having to spend time on them. You can move them into your newsletter sequence as well then. But I wouldn't personally move someone into my newsletter sequence until I had at least tried to close them on that current inquiry. Good. Any more questions, anybody? Anyone going to give follow-up another try? Go and have a think about those clients that you've only followed up once or twice that potentially could convert. The best place to get a privacy notice for keeping their email, so that would be on the form, I would imagine. I have a double opt-in on your form, on your web inquiry form. That's probably the best place to get that, and there would be a privacy notice on there. Okay, good. You can honestly increase your, honestly, I sound like such a salesperson, don't I? Honestly, let's go. You can increase your conversions quite extensively just by following up more. So make that little map. If you'd like a copy, just message me. I'm happy to send a blank one over that you can fill in. But just stick to it and just think, can I add a piece of value? You've probably got blogs, materials, study guides, art. They don't even need to be your content, actually. You could send, I don't know, a BBC guide or a video of something that illustrates something that you do, or doesn't even need to be your copy. So I'll quite often send out someone else's links and copy because it goes along a theme. So I'm not a time management expert, for example, but I work with a lot of busy people. So I will quite often borrow content, obviously crediting them, and send that out to the people that I'm dealing with. So I might find an article on the Pomodoro technique, which I'm a big fan of. So I might find an article on that and say, look, if you're struggling for time or productivity needs a bit of a tweak, have a look at this article. You're still adding value. You don't have to keep creating everything, because obviously we have no time. That's what none of us have, right? So good. Well, I hope that's been helpful. Sorry, I'm a little off colour. I've only just come out of surgery, I was saying to Sam. So I'm a little off colour. And I couldn't see all your lovely faces, but it's been, I hope that's helped. And I hope some of you will take some things away to improve your sales, and let's just help more of those kids get the best that they can.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Loads away. I also think, like, in terms of, where you were just saying about the content creation, just trying to, and when you're suffering to be creative. So I actually recently realized that Canva can do bulk create, which is, I mean, I am sure most of you follow TTA. So in the past, when I've been doing like, here's a conference speaker, I've been making them one by one.
Oh, wow.
I know. And it's blown me away. It was so quick and easy to use. And I think just finding any way to automate the role that you're doing is just, yeah, so helpful. I mean, even just if you can't use something like HubSpot, just really trying to automate like a spreadsheet is just going to be, you know, change the colors, have drop downs and get things moving along. But yeah, automation is key. It is absolutely
automation is, it really is. I mean, it can be a bit overwhelming if you don't feel confident with automation, or you just don't know what you don't know, right? You didn't know that Canva hack beforehand, did you? So now you know, you are off. But even just having a calendar to remind you when to follow up, it's that simple. Just make the list and just go, okay, in 2 days I'm going to send them another thing, and I'm going to send them a case study, and I'm going to email it. It's just dead simple. Keep it simple if you're overwhelmed, I think. But yeah, I love a bit of automation. HubSpot does a lot of automation. It's very good. The free version is very good if you don't have over 1,000 contacts. I'd highly recommend it.
It gets very expensive very quickly though, especially if you start adding in workflows, which is a shame because I think workflows would be so like useful for smaller businesses as well. But
well, that's where they make their money, isn't it? I guess. So yes, there's one called, I don't know about Active Campaign. I haven't used it for a long time, but I hear good things about that. It's supposed to be very easy to set up workflows on there, but that's definitely not free. There's probably a level of it that's free. But even just being aware, I think just being aware that you have a pipeline in some cases can be really helpful. So what is my pipeline? How do I get them from there to there? What do they need to hear, see and feel to move on and take that next step and just reply to me sometimes?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nicola, and thank you everybody for attending today. This is actually our penultimate day of the summer sessions. So tomorrow we have our final 2 sessions, which are Lisa Haycox will be joining us to talk about the journey of lifelong learning, the power of personalized tuition, and then we have our last partner showcase in the afternoon at 3 o'clock as well. So please make sure that you're all signed up, and if you have missed any of the summer sessions that have happened so far, they are all on our YouTube channel, so you can go and have a look. Literally the past 7 weeks up to and including Lucy's session yesterday, which she was unable to do live in the end, but we have a recording and it's up on YouTube. So yeah, please go and take a look. Grab a cup of tea, yeah, in your own time. They're really good to catch up with. So yeah, thank you everybody. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely day. See you soon.